Hey guys, how's it going today? How you guys doing this week? Good, good, good. So finally, we Lance from Animation Support staff, and who ex-Double Fine employee, by the way. We went over and we finally figured out. Well, this has been going on back and forth for the past 3 weeks. Finally figured out the problem, the source of the problem for my AMP stuff, and so that's working, which is awesome. So I can start bringing that your guys' work up for demos and during the lectures and everything, which is awesome. So I'm excited about that. I just realized that this version of Maya doesn't have all my settings in it, which is cool because I can kind of go over that too. I can also go back to the other Maya if necessary. But anyway, that is exciting to me. All right, let's get started. Any questions for this week? Well, I made that smoothie super thick. It's like hard to swallow. Ghosting geometry. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I can cam you, so I can talk about it. Oh, let's get questions now, just so I don't start talking and not address the questions. I think it's better to get those now than anything else. Mark, you want me to cam you about this ghosting question? Where are you? There you are. Okay. Hey, Mark.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, wait. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see these questions up here. He froze. First question, how do we scale the advanced ball rig geometry without breaking the rig? Like my beach ball to be bigger than my cannonball. So that one, I thought this, let's see, this is a new one. Are you there, Mark? Can we hear you now? Can't. No. Oh, all my controls are different here. Let's try camming you again. Now, that question, you know, I'd hate to have to dig into this rig too much. The old ball, let me see if this still has it, if I'm correct in this assumption, because I feel like the old ball had a scale node on it. And this one does not. See what this looks like. Oh, you got the scale. Okay. Does it have a scale note on it? Let me try camming you again. See if that. Because I feel like the old one did, but I might be wrong about that too. I know. Oh, you know what it is? Here, I bet I know what it is. Let me. This is like getting like really into the rig itself. Still no audio. No audio. You can unplug your headphones because it seemed like we could hear you then. I won't talk so it won't echo. No, I think that killed your. I think you have to restart your browser once you do that. Oh, the joys of internet communication. We can come back to you. Channel control, right? And so this is where the scaling would be. And I think if you just move these over, oh, you guys can't see my desktop, can you? And they're locked. Let me just see if this works before I show you. Yeah, it totally works. I think it works. Let's see. Yeah, it works. Okay. So what happens, let me try to undoing all this. Just for those that, I assume people still want to know how to do this, the scaling, right? Even people that have figured this out. Okay, good. When you open the advanced vol from AMP, let me just scale this up. There's this thing in here under Window and General Editors, and it's called Channel Control. And what this basically means is that like when someone creates a rig, they have the option of hiding these controls in the channel box. And what it does is just makes it somewhat cleaner for animators working sometimes. Sometimes it makes things like takes away things that you might want to do, in this case scaling. So you just go here, General Editors, Channel Control, open that up, and it'll bring up this box, right? And wait, I'm like losing the chat here. Okay, here we go. Where's it going? There it is. Okay. So on this left side here, we see all the keyable attributes, and we can see that is like over here too. We that actually, let me just, you want to make sure you have this selected too, like the right control selected. So let me go through this step by step. I have nothing selected. I select this control. I go to Window, General Editors, Channel Control, and as you see there, yeah, now this is updated. So like all these controls, squash and stretch, all these things are over here in this side, on the right side in the channel box. Now all this stuff is the unkeyable stuff. Now most of the stuff you don't want, but if you go down to scale, right here, you can bring back the original scale nodes and you just move them over. And once you do that, you see that they come up, and actually they're locked as well. So what you have to do here is just like what we were doing with the camera, you just right click and unlock selected. And so now you have scale controls. And you can just say, I want this one to be a little bit bigger. I want it to be a lot bigger. So now you can scale it. Everybody get that? Cool. Okay. So that said, it's nice to have that, and we'll go over this a little bit more, but it's not necessary to scale this. Even though I showed you this is why these channels are locked and hidden, is that it's okay if the balls in your scene are the same size, like they're not like one is like way bigger than the other. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But it's okay also if you want to change the size. Either way, it's fine. So with that, Mark, let's try you again and talk about ghosting. See if your audio works this time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
I
don't hear myself either.
So I was asking about ghosting, just for visually tracking the arc, because when you turn on ghosting normally, it will ghost the controller. And what I'd like to ghost is the ball, just so you can ghost the sort of silhouette instead of this little line that doesn't necessarily represent what you're going to see.
Yeah, definitely. Ghosting, I found, is kind of a pain in the butt most of the time. But if you find it helpful, then yeah, you definitely want to select the right part of the geometry for it to show up. So what I do is I open your outliner, and then in here you'll see the ball geom. And if you select that, then try ghosting. Then go to animate, ghost selected, and you can apply that. There's ways to set your ghosting options too. I think this has changed quite a bit. Custom frames here. Yeah, you can set the frame numbers to display, and I mean you can do whatever works for you for this. But if you just hit ghost now, that should do it. It's been a while since I've used ghosting, but yeah, there you go. So that will show the geometry itself. Is that
going back to my old cheats of 2D? Going back to my old cheats of 2D, being able to flip or looking through the light box.
Yeah, definitely. So the AM tools have some. I think there's that art tracker tool, which I feel is pretty helpful. Have you tried that one?
Yeah. It was just I was hoping to get the actual silhouette of the object instead of a little dot.
Yeah. So that is why ghosting is helpful in that respect, is to actually see everything. So yeah, I know there's a script. There used to be a script out there called what was it called? I used to use it all the time. And what it would do is just create like a snapshot of the geometry and kind of ghost it. And so you could just like take one picture instead of many, instead of like that confusing and it looks like the Maya 2012, and this is how long it's been since I've used ghosting, but it looks like Maya 2012 actually has the ability to, where was it? Animate, go select it, to do that, because you can actually set like custom frames now, which you used to not be able to do, and you could just say, or just keyframes, which is pretty cool. So you can just put ghost on. So I might have to go back and try ghosting again, because it used to be just like it would just do this one thing, and you can set how many were before or after, and it was kind of disorienting. But now it looks a lot more powerful. So yeah, that's actually good to know. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for asking the question.
I'm anxious to try Grease Pencil too.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to try Grease, but it was in one of the videos on student workflow. They mentioned it as it used to be an AM tool, and now they've taken it out, and it's in 2014, but AM is not supporting 14 yet. So we're sort of in this. They don't have it. It will be included, but not for us yet. So.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they took it out because of that. Interesting. Okay, yeah, because that's pretty powerful one, too.
During the video, there's actually a little pop-up that says, go to AM Tools to see further description, and I looked for it, and I sent in a support ticket, and I said, no, we took it out.
Oh,
I guess in
no.
anticipation because they know Maya 14 is going to have it included, built in.
I guess
But we're in
so.
this limbo period where this week in the video news they said don't upgrade to 14 yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. But yeah, once you get that, I mean, I guess it is a very powerful tool. It's a great thing to have. But yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Mark?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Okay. So let me see. I see some other questions here. Casey, this is your question. Oh, you have two questions here. Okay. For the bouncing ball, let me just answer these. Answer Cam. For the bouncing ball, should all the contact positions either be all odds and then the highest point of the arcs be all evens, or vice versa, or does this not matter? Let's get you on camera before I answer that. Hey, Casey.
Hey, what's up? Can you see me?
Not much. Yes. See and hear.
Okay, great.
Okay, so your question, are you basically saying, does it matter what frame number these keyframes are on? Like
Yeah,
an
because
odd frame number?
I was actually watching Anthony Wong's e-critiques for one of his students, and he was saying that you should have all your contact positions on an even, and then if they're all uneven, the apexes should all be on odds. So I tried that with my bouncing ball, but it didn't feel like completely right. It felt like there was a missing point, so I wasn't really sure if this was the way you had to do it or not.
No, I've never heard of that, honestly. That's interesting. Here's my philosophy, and I think this is a good one to go with. Do whatever looks good. Whatever ends up looking good works. So, I mean, people put like math, and they put like, oh, this has to be on this frame number, this has to be on that frame number, and I don't really think that that's as important as if your assignment, if everything looks good and everything works, then you're set. I think maybe Anthony Wong, I mean, he's an awesome animator. He has some system that he's using. He might have like a 2D animation teacher that told him to do something like that, and it kind of got him to get this result. But either way, like I feel like if you tried this and it didn't look right, then that's something that, think about, like, okay, what's more, it's less important how you get there, it's more important the result of what you get. So everyone has their own ways of getting there.
Okay, cool.
So, okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Great. And then I see you have another question. Let me bring up that question. Does the cannonball and bowling ball lose the same amount of height with each bounce? So you're saying based on like the weight of the ball itself, like if one is a little bit heavier, does it lose the same amount?
Yeah.
So again, this is the type of thing that I think is not something to overthink too much. That if it looks like it's heavy, then that's what works. If you wanted to say like if you wanted to like roll off the cliff and it bounces a little bit, and I'm going to go over this a little bit in the lecture, and then loses a lot of energy, and someone says, oh well, that's a bowling ball, and you're like, well, I was going for a cannonball, but either way, like you got it to read that it was heavy. And I honestly don't ever see a situation where everyone's going to like argue that, because you got that result of it, like, oh yeah, it's heavy, it's a heavy ball. That's all that really matters right now in this assignment.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to be a bit too technical.
Yeah, and that's easy to do. So that, like, I want you to kind of, and this is for everybody, just kind of step back from the technical side of things and the way that the physics work, and start thinking more about the artistic side of things and how things look and how things are perceived by the audience. And that's what's really important. I remember at ILM, someone told me the story of when they were doing, I think it was the Poseidon Adventure, one of those movies where they used a lot of water to flip over a ship. And I think, yeah, it was the Poseidon Adventure, that they did a sim of the ocean, and they created this exact replica of the way the ocean worked during the storm, with like all the right conditions, with the waves being like 50 feet high and all that stuff. And then they put it against the ship, and the ship was like, you know, how many meters long? I don't know, 100 meters long or whatever, this giant ship. And then they ran the simulation, and everything looked really puny in comparison. Like it just didn't look very dramatic. So what they did, they had to do is they went back and they made the waves like just insanely tall. Like just, I mean, like instead of 20 feet tall, they were like, or 50 feet tall, they were like 1,000 feet tall, just to make it look good for the movie itself. And so that's why a lot of times when people think about like, oh, the way the physics are working, the way it's technically going to work, it doesn't always work for the dramatic side. It doesn't always work for the way the artistic side is going to always outweigh everything, like how it communicates to the audience and that how the audience reacts to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that with between those two things, like just getting a heavy ball is really important right now, and I'll go over that right now. So.
Okay, great.
Make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions?
There was one other question. I wanted to know if you think we should collide the balls together, or you don't think we should do it for this assignment?
You can do either way. It's fine with me, and I'll go over which, if you do one or the other, how it should look. So I'll go into that.
Okay, cool.
So that's good. That's good to think about.
Okay,
cool.
Thanks.
That's it. All right. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks.
Okay. Who else? Mark, I'm going to take out this question because we talked about that ghosting one. And Julian, you have a question. Is it okay to make a pose that looks good from the camera angle but looks broken from other angles? That's a great question. Everyone's clear about what I was just talking about, right? Yeah, sometimes even real life seems fake, exactly. Okay, Julian, let's go to your question. Big chug of my hard-to-swallow smoothie. Is it okay to make a pose that looks good from the camera angle but looks broken from other angles? There you are. Hey, Julian.
Hello.
Okay, so that's a great question. It's one of those questions that, like, we know that we can, hold on, I can kind of hear myself talk and I'll start thinking about it, but we know that, like, we're able to cheat to the camera with the poses we have. Like, we can create a pose and we can make a pose from any angle, or like we have a set camera angle and we can make it look good from one angle, right? And then as soon as we move that camera around, it looks like it's completely off balance or looks really weird. And I used to think that was an okay thing. I used to think that, yeah, it's fine as long as it looks good to the camera. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's fine as long as it looks good to the camera. But when you're actually setting things in motion, this is where you have to be careful, is that if you start to animate that character and he has to go from one really weird position where his weight is all skewed from one angle and then moves over to another position, then you have to think about, like, how that's going to transition. And if that looks weird, then the audience is going to pick that up, even though they might not be able to see it on camera. And it's a really interesting thing. And I remember my lead animator at Blue Sky is the one that taught me that. Like, if he does a medium shot, he animates everything down, and he makes sure that even, like, if the character's walking, he'll even animate the legs and the feet walking, just because he wants to be that correct about the body position and the way everything works. So that's true for film. It's very true for games, because with games, the player can actually go around and look at every angle of the character if it's in-game stuff. If it's cinematic, it's different, but that's something. It's just a good habit to get into, to make sure that your pose looks good from your camera angle, but also works from every other angle. It doesn't have to look great from every other angle.
Okay.
You're still posing to the camera, but it should at least be balanced from every other angle, and it should be to where, like, okay, that this character isn't going to fall over, or this, like, doesn't have, all these weird proportions or anything like that. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing to think about when you're posing your character.
Cool. Alrighty.
So, make sense? Okay, any other questions?
Yeah. Thanks. I know that was it.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks.
All right. Good question, guys. Any more questions today? Okay. Let me unghost everything here. So, let's see. I went back and let me try to open this again. So today I really want to talk about just this assignment, this heavy ball versus light ball assignment. And there's a few things that I want to make sure you guys are clear on before, as you're working on it. Hopefully you've already started it a little bit. But as you're going through it, there's a few things that you guys should definitely keep in mind, and I want to make sure that those are very clear. So let me import. Actually, let me see if there is. Where is this? Documents. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this AMP stuff, like everyone else. Documents, Animation Mentor. Okay, there we go. So I just have that ball. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Is there a set that you guys are using, just out of curiosity, for this, or are you building your own? I just want to make sure that we're still on this. Okay, there isn't a file. Okay. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that that's still the same, because I figured it was. I just wanted to double check. Okay. Well, then in that case, let's bring in the other ball here, and I'm just going to bring in this one from my messy folder here. Actually, you know what? I want to try this on AMP. So that's the file, huh? Interesting. Okay. Let's try to import it.
I don't like this this updated file structure thing. It's confusing. You know what? Let me just change it right now. And what I mean by that is like there's this thing that says settings, right? If I don't find it within the next 5 seconds, I'm going to move on. Where is it? I thought it was here. Okay, I'm going to move on. There's this thing that says OS native, and Ready, you count it down for me. I wonder if I could just duplicate that ball. What I don't understand is, like, how come I can't go back? Oh, I see. That's what it does. There's the advanced ball. Ah! Let's do this. If I can just drag this in here. No, it won't let me. No, I can't. There we go. All right, did that work? It worked. Okay, good. You saw StarCraft 2. I haven't played that in like 2 years. I am definitely not good enough to play that game. I am not worthy. Okay, so moving forward with this. So last week we talked a little bit about composition, right, and about staging your shots. And we've kind of been talking about that from the beginning, like the way you communicate an idea, the way that you want to present your animation is what should it be above everything else? What should your animation be? Hopefully you guys know this by now. And if you don't, that's on me for not teaching you the most important thing in animation. Telling a story, yeah, exactly. We want to tell a story, and the way we do that is through clear communication, right? We want to make sure that what we're communicating is as clear to the audience as possible. And so with one character, that seems pretty straightforward. We say, okay, like this is where my character is. I'm setting up the stage I'm staging my character for the right mood and the right attitude and everything. And you know that stuff can start getting really complex, but that's why there are entire layout departments that focus just on that. And for now, we want to keep things as simple as possible. Just really, the way I like to think of it is just like you're on a stage, like in the theater, and you're presenting to the audience, and they're right in front of you, and there's not much room for camera interpretation, anything like that. That comes later. But once you start adding, with one character, it's pretty straightforward. We know where to look. We know the audience knows to look at that character. But what happens when you put two characters on screen? How do you tell the audience to look at one over the other one? Like what are some ideas that you guys have just in terms of that? Like what do you think is a good way to approach that? If we have two characters at the same time, how do we know to look at one rather than the other? Make one bigger. That's definitely visually, like make one bigger. Don't make strong movement in both at the same time. Starting things at different speeds. Have one looking at the other motions. Yeah, you guys are totally correct with that. Like that's the way that we as humans. I mean, we're going back to we're basically animals, and we are animals, right? And we have all these sensory
devices, things to not me. Okay, Brandy, you're exempt. We have all these devices to help with our survival, and that comes back from very, very long ago when we didn't have computers and houses and all these things that like we really had to, and we still do, but we had to use our sensory inputs for surviving. And one of the biggest ones that humans have is their eyes. Like our ocular sensory is just, it's very acute in a lot of ways. And one of those ways that it's really more acute than others is through motion perception. And so you'll understand that like when things move, we look at them. That's one of those things that we just do. And more importantly, an interesting thing that happens is that as things move in your peripheral, from the side, we start to look at that and we react to it, and that makes us turn our heads and focus at something. So if you notice if something's moving on your periphery, then you'll look over at it. It's just something that happens that we do. And so that's a good way to understand how to communicate to the audience. Going back to this, is that we know that as humans we focus on motion, and if we have something moving very rapidly up and down or whatever, just doing something, like if I'm just doing this and I'm talking to you and I'm saying this, look at that, the odds are you're going to be looking at this most of the time. Now what happens if I'm doing this on both of them? Where are you going to look? Like you don't really know. You're starting to create like confusion. We're starting to say, okay, like if everything's moving all the time, all over the place, so what is your eye going to pick up? Like your eye isn't really going to know where to go, and it's starting to be confusing. A good example of that, and I was going to bring a clip up of Transformers, the movie, and I figured that might cut in a little bit too much time because that's it's not really that necessary. In fact, I can bring it up later in contrast to a really good movie like The Incredibles and show like the different action scenes between them, but it's the rails. And sometimes there's so much stuff happening on screen that you don't know you don't even know where to look. Like there's just like, okay, yeah, there's the camera's spinning, but on top of that, these robots are like flying all over the place, and their design is so weird that I don't even know what's the face and what's the arm. And I mean, they're incredibly animated. That has nothing to do with it. The animators at ILM did a great job on them. It's the director that made all the motion and everything, and all that constant stuff happening all the time. So, yeah, visual white noise. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's a good way to see that. And let me just, I can find this really quickly. But yeah, that visual white noise. I'll have to find it later. This is all like going. I mean, I have more in store for like a lecture on layout and just totally like thinking about the staging of everything. And that's The Incredibles one. I'll show you guys clips from that. And in that case, I don't want to derail this too much from this initial assignment here, but just know that there's a lot more to that than just this, as you guys can imagine. And so yeah, like thinking, going back to this, I know, right? Is he actually directing that though? Did it get canceled? Well, I hope so. Anyway, going back to this, we want to stage this in a way that we have both characters and we understand where they're going, and we want to animate it in a way where the audience knows where to look the entire time. Now that said, I just said don't have both things moving a lot at the same time, but does that mean that one can be moving and the other one has to be totally still? No, they can both be moving, but you have to, again, think about where you're directing your audience's eye. So with something like this, if I have, let me just lock this camera down. And I'll create a little bit of geometry, but not very much. And I'm just going to make it simple, a little higher. Bring that down. And then with this, I want maybe just like a little bit of an incline, decline, as the case may be. So that's, you don't need anything any more complicated than this. And just for presentation's sake, I want to make a ground plane. And so I'm just going to rotate that. Something like that. You don't have to have the ball starting in this shot. You don't have to have it rolling to a start, but you have to have it rolling to a stop. And I'll go over that a little bit more. But in this case, we have both characters, both objects on each side of the screen. And I want to make sure that the audience sees one first. So I'm going to say, okay, what's going to happen here is one ball is going to start, and then the other one's going to start. I also want to understand what the most important thing to communicate in this shot is, and that is the weight of the ball. That is the most important thing. So like that's your story, right? Like that's the main thing. If we don't understand each weight of each ball, then we're not telling the story clearly. So at least what has to happen is this ball has to get to a point, and I'm going to say this one's the heavy ball. This ball has to get to a point where the audience understands it's heavy before we go back and communicate the idea that this ball is the light ball. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Okay. So I'm locking this camera. Good. Just want to make sure I'm not, if I'm going too fast, let me know, too. If I'm, please, okay. 7. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'd probably bring them a little closer, but whatever, just for the sake of this. So I want to show you guys just like the simple scene setup and everything. So I have this ball. This is my heavy ball. And very quickly, I'm just going to bring in these key points. And it won't be long before I dive into my graph editor. If you guys aren't using your graph editor, I want to reiterate that what I was telling you guys when I was talking to Casey, how you get to something, it doesn't matter. You can code all this stuff in Python if that's the way it works in your mind. If you think that, okay, I can make all these things move and it makes more sense for me to code it, as long as it looks good, it works. You can keyframe every single frame straight ahead, do whatever you want. I mean, there's some things that take longer than others, and at some point you have to understand that efficiency is a very important thing in animation. But if you can get the result that you want and it looks good, it doesn't matter how you got there. So with this, same sort of thing. I'm blocking this stuff in. Oh, I don't have auto key on. I want to have auto key on. And if you guys have a different way of approaching it, oh, and also I'm going to be going into the graph editor pretty soon. If you guys don't feel like, like I don't do that, I don't go in the graph editor, don't think that what I'm showing you is the only way to approach it. That's what I want to make. Like every time I do a demo, if you do it a different way and it works, then that's okay. If you do it a different way and it doesn't work, then maybe it's time to think about this way or a new way. Dope and graph editor, yeah, I use them both too, but usually for different reasons. We're gonna have that, and so look how rough this is. So this is my blocking. Now, oh wait. I want to make sure, very important, see all my settings got messed up with this version, that when I go to my time slider, actually this I want bigger. That's the way I work. And I want to not play every frame, I want to play real time. It's very important. So that looks much better. It's fantastic. So I'm going to call that done. Final. Just kidding. There's a lot more to go here. So now I'm just bringing in the graph editor just because I feel like with something like this, I could start cleaning this up. I have my important beats here, the ball bouncing, and even that. I mean, the ball bouncing, it's totally weird looking right now. But I can clean up a lot of this in the graph editor, so I'm going to. But again, if it's easier for you to look at these individual frames right now and just clean it up there, by all means do that. I might say that 100 more times just to, before the end of this term, just because I want it to be that clear. That the way you approach it is what matters. Whoa, let's see, what did I do? Okay, that's what I did. So with that, I'm going to clean up this translate X. I don't want it to stop. I want it to roll forward a little bit. And so you notice what I did was I didn't worry about that in my blocking, because I think what's going to really help this is how this goes through on the graph editor. So I can get a lot of that timing through that. And maybe just continue it forward a little bit more. You know what, let me get into that a little bit later. And so another thing I don't really need is this keyframe. Well, I might. I'm going to keep that there for now. I don't have my hotkeys either. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm just going to turn all those onto auto. Okay. Now let's go into that. And what's important here is the tangents on this, just like the ball bounce. So I'm going to switch those to linear. And the thing about this, with the heavy ball, it's something that's really interesting to me is that when you think about a heavy ball, you think about the weight just like stopping instantly. But it actually, like, if you look at videos, if you guys have looked at videos or done your own videos showing like a bowling ball or a cannonball or whatever, that first bounce is usually pretty big. What it is that dissipation of energy, like the way the energy actually is the way it kind of bleeds off from the ball itself. Like it happens very quickly, as opposed to a light ball where that energy stays and bleeds off very slowly. But that first bounce is usually pretty big, followed by much shorter and smaller second and third, fourth bounces. So that's the way I like to think of it here. Is like it's that big bounce, just like a regular ball, or just like a lighter ball, and then bring that in, and I think I will add a few more. One thing is like the timing here is a little odd, so I'm going to make sure that timing feels a little bit better. I'm not being too exact with this timing yet, because I still feel like I'm in blocking, and I just want to get a good sense of what's happening more than anything else. So I want one more bounce, maybe two more bounces. And you notice that I'm just adding these directly into the graph editor right now by holding down I and hold down I and middle mouse button, and that'll put it right into the graph editor. Now, the reason why I'm okay doing that is that I can go back and actually look at the height here and then go back and change it. So if it's too high or too low, whatever, I'll bring that in. And so here, we give it a few more frames on that one. And let's see how that looks. So not great yet, but so what I want is to bring this translate over to, like, as long as it's bouncing, I want it to still be moving forward a little bit. I think even after it bounces, I want it to move forward. So that you want to bring this back a little bit. One thing you want to be very sure of is that as this comes off here, whether it's light or heavy, you want an arc right here. If it just goes straight down after that, it's going to look weird. This needs an arc. So you see, like, there's a little bit of an arc there, and I still have that, and that's good. And then I'll go back and clean this up a little bit later. That right now, what's really important is that I'm getting that arc in there. Does that make sense so far? Okay, good. Always have arcs. Even if they're little arcs, you always want arcs in your shot. Okay. So I'm noticing this arc is a little weird, this first one. And so what I want to do is maybe bring it over a little bit. Now the thing about having this going off the edge, it's going to take a little bit of fine tuning, and that's like direct frame by frame fine tuning usually. That's okay. Now the timing of this feels a little. Now I can look at my timing here, and I don't have that that hotkey. I'll have to go back and make my hotkeys. But if I look through that spacing, you see how it's not really accelerating very much. It's actually not accelerating enough at all. So when I play it back, it has this very constant feel to it. Like that timing is very dull. It doesn't accelerate. What I want that timing to do is what? Like what do I want with that spacing right here? In that area. What do you guys think? What should my spacing look like? Any ideas? Yeah, larger spacing, exactly. It should be much farther apart. So here, and that's going to give that timing and spacing are directly connected. They're synonymous, right? Like you can't have timing without spacing and vice versa. All spacing is timing that isn't in motion. Well, and then once that timing goes in, once you put them together, that timing is seeing that spacing in motion. But that's why everyone says timing and spacing, because we want that. And so what I did is I just grabbed all my controllers and I moved them over. And I'm not sure about that one. So what I usually do here in this case, like I'm just going to remove that in between. So I'm going to go to Keys, Remove In Between, and that takes it away. So now I have more of a. Again, I'm just looking at my spacing here, and that looks a little bit better as it comes off. Now, what's going to make that feel even better than that is, let me try one more thing here. There's something I need to fix a little bit later, but right now I just want to make sure that path is clean. Okay. So this is when I go in, and usually by default I'll have weighted tangents, and I will, let's see, I have these, free that tangent weight like that, and I'll move this out to give that more hang time. If you don't want weighted tangents and you still want to do that, then what I'd suggest is you can add a keyframe. I know many people that do. Again, hit I, hold down I and hit middle mouse button. And that way you can bring just a little bit more hang time in between there. So that first bounce, see, we're getting more hang time there. You guys clear on that part of it? I think Bobby goes over that in the ball bounce a little bit. So, and then again, like I want to make sure that that this stuff is staying clean. So I'm going to break those tangents here. And you see how it was just kind of bowing in, like it was just like going a little bit too far in. So I'm going to smooth that out. I'm going to take that tangent 2 and get my hang time there. And so because I'm running out of time, I want to go over the specifics of like how we can have this ball roll to a stop. But that's the basic, like how I'm moving out, starting with my blocking and moving out from there. So I have that ball moving first. It doesn't matter if you started with the light ball or the heavy ball, but you should at least do one first and then see how the other one works. Now the question was asked, Casey, I think you asked it, was can you have them hit each other, or should you avoid that? You can absolutely have them hit each other. Now, if you do have them have one ball hit the other one, specifically if you have the light ball hit the heavy ball, don't have the heavy ball react to that light ball. You should just go in and it's like it hits that, and there's no reaction whatsoever. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Now, let me go into, with that, I just want to, how strict is very strict? You have to keep it at 120. that's like one of those things that Animation Mentor, they really want that frame limit to be set. And the good way to think about it is that, like, okay, if I got a shot and I had to do the shot, like, you know, in a movie, they kick off shots to the animators and they give you your shot, and your shot is set at a frame length, and so that's a very professional way of looking at it. So I don't see it that exactly. So let's talk about. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I think you guys are pretty clear on all this stuff, or most of the stuff here, and I'm gonna go into the settling to a stop. So with ball rotation and settling and all that stuff, there are formulas out there. Again, this goes back to doing things very technically. There are formulas out there where you can, and I think it's a pretty easy formula where you set the speed of the ball, and then you know the rotation. It's like pretty straightforward to figure out, I think, to know the exact rotation of the ball as it's translating forward. But I never really do that. All I do is just eyeball it. So if I just say, okay, I grab this curve, and I know the ball has to rotate in this direction, so I'm going to do that and rotate how many times? Well, definitely more than one, so it's going to go past 360. And I'm just going to play that. Oops. And like 9 times out of 10, it works the first time. It's just one of those things that works. Now, when you do ball rotation, there's a few very important things to remember. I'm sorry, Julian. What did you say? Don't have the heavy ball hit the light ball, or don't have the light ball hit the? No, you can have that. You can definitely have the light ball hit the heavy ball. If you have the light ball hit the heavy ball, don't have the heavy ball react to it. Don't really. So and the reason why is because that's going to give a better sense of weight. Like that heavy ball is heavy, and so if the light ball hits it, there shouldn't be any sort of reaction. And that's just a perception thing. Should we make, I'm sorry, Casey, you brought up a question, and then it went away. Did you take it down? Or did I just miss it? Oh, okay. Okay, so going to this rotation, when you have rotation on a ball, make sure that the translation and the rotation always start and end on the same keyframe. So notice that with this rotation here, it's ending on the same keyframe as the translation. Now, if that were different, if I had, say, maybe a few frames where the rotation ended and then the translation kept going, it would slide, right? If it goes a little further out, then it rotates in place, and that looks weird. So always make sure that those are on the same keyframe. Should the heavy ball be stopped before the light ball hits it? Because would it make a difference if the heavy ball was still rolling just now? No, it doesn't matter which way you do it. If the heavy ball is rolling and then the light ball hits it and it's still rolling, that's totally fine. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's really up to you. As long as we get the idea that one is heavy, one is light, then that's fine. Okay. So everyone's clear about the rotation, same keyframe, start and end, same keyframe. Okay. Now, what if we wanted to ease to a stop? Now, this is why I use weighted tangents. Let's see. Something weird is happening now. Oh, so it's like moving it over. Oh, why does it do that? Let me lock that. That's really weird. It's like locking. Some weird setting is making this lock. I don't know what that is. So I want this to be out here.
And I'm going to switch this to weighted tangents. So curves, weighted. I have that. I'm going to flatten these tangents. So hopefully they'll stay about the same. That didn't change anything. I'm going to switch this to free tangent weight. And you know that will bring, the tangents will have these like little open squares at the end of them. So now if I do this, if I like bring it out, it's going to add more ease to the, like it'll just create, it's an easy way to create that ease out into the, with the ball. So that, and now I can move it around a little bit more. I don't know why it keeps doing that. It's really weird. What's up with that? So, but yeah, that's just a good way of getting more ease. You probably got too much there. See how one is a little bit off than the other? I want to try to keep these very close to each other. So I probably need a little bit more. It was rotating a little bit too much, so I need to bring that translation up. I don't know why that happened, but it did. So it's something you can eyeball, and it's pretty straightforward once you do. Maybe a little bit too much translation forward. Sorry. I'm worried about it being too busy visualizing with both moving at once with only 120 frames. Do I have to have both move at the same time, don't I? Yeah, so you definitely do at some point have to have one move with the other one. And so that's my main point here is like with that, have this heavy ball move, and then right after we see that heavy ball, you know, and again, I'm not saying do it exactly like this. Like, you guys use your imagination on how to present this. This is just like one way of doing it. But like, have the heavy ball do its first bounce, and then we understand that it's heavy. But right around here, with the second bounce, I would start moving the light ball and have it roll to a stop. So yeah, you don't have to have one move and then the other, but be careful about how you start those moves. Direct the eye from screen left over here. I'm directing the eye over to the middle, and then what I want to do is that as this slows down, I want to bring the light ball over and have it move. So like, this one's still moving. It's not completely going to a stop. Are you guys? Does that make sense? Okay. 1, 2. Do you want any Cami mark? The half. It's okay. All right. Yeah, just the way that the way you stage it, you know, that'll have a lot to do with it. Okay, let me go into the settle because I'm really running out of time here. So what I do here with this, like, this isn't totally perfect yet, but I keep tweaking it. And then what I'll do with this is I'll go back a few frames. So you see on the timeline, I'm going back a few frames. And then I'll hold down my middle mouse button, and I'll go forward a few frames, and I'll keyframe. And so what that does is it creates a little settle there. So that, now, you know, I'm going to move this out a little bit, and then maybe flatten these tangents. So it's a little abrupt, I think, because, oh yeah, I need to take a look at that. So yeah, it's probably going a little bit too abrupt on this side. Let me break this tangent. And then I can do the same thing here. Like, I can grab this from my left mouse button,
go over here and then select frame 90, middle mouse over past that, and keyframe. And what that's doing, as we can see, like if I left mouse over, middle mouse forward, what it does is it copies that value back and forth. So I can get, actually that last one didn't look right, but I can get that settle. And of course I'd want to tweak that a little bit more. And I can adjust the timing. I can use the dope sheet. And as long as the rotation and translation are the same keyframe, then you'll keep getting that. But yeah, does that make sense? Like what you're doing is you're copying the value over here. If you middle mouse button, you copy the value from that keyframe, and then when you hit S, you get that value. So it's a nice little trick, and actually I use this all the time. I use this in character animation. If I want a little settle, like what I'll do is I'll take the value from around that extreme point and I'll put it back a few frames, and then I'll copy that value so I can get nice settles this way, and it applies to character animation as well. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm sorry guys, but I really have to go because I have to go to work. But if you have any questions, please email me about them. And other than that, have a good week, and just have fun with this assignment. And just remember that the clarity is very important, but the way you get there, it's up to you. Like, this is really open for you guys to have fun with it, just as long as you are communicating those major ideas, like the big ideas, like heavy ball and light ball. As long as the audience can read that, then everything else is open to you. I'm sending you a message about my planning on this assignment, so be on the lookout. So, okay, sounds good, Julian. And anybody else that wants to do that, please email me the same thing. All right, take care, guys. Have a good week.